Hi, good morning. I'm India Taylor, and nice to see all of you today. And this morning I'm inspired to talk about our power of prayer, and it might even be a superpower. So, first of all, I have a question for you. How do you know when you need to pray? Do you get any clues from your body or from your thoughts or anything like that? How do you know when you need to pray? Martha?
Sometimes I just don't know what else to do. It's like I'm in a really awful spot.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just gonna pray.
Yeah, I understand that. Anybody else?
I totally agree with
Is that, yeah,
It's like,
pretty much everybody's
God, I've got to
experience?
give this to you because I don't know what to do.
Yes, yes. Well, I totally relate to that. In fact, a few years ago, I was telling a friend all about something I was upset about, and I was going on and on to her, and I don't even remember what the matter was. Only that I felt anxious, and I possibly felt some righteous indignation about something, about some situation. And the friend listened patiently for several minutes, as friends do, to everything that was on my mind. And after several minutes, she said, "You need to pray." And I thought, oh, I do need to pray. That's right. You know, I'm glad she brought that up. Her words were the perfect interruption to my runaway thought train that I didn't even want to be on.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Unity authors, Mary Kupferle, wrote, "Stop. Stop thinking of yourself as weak, sick, or afraid. Claim. Claim God as your Father. See. See God as being in control of the situation of concern." And I like her verbs there. Her 3 action words that she gives us in that passage. Stop, claim, see. You know, you can almost use that as your own little affirmation. When we hit the pause button on our worries and pray, that's what we do. We stop. We claim trust and faith and truth, and then we are able to see clearly. A long time ago, I discovered a Unity book that helped me to learn to pray, entitled "God Will See You Through." It was a compilation of affirmative, transformative articles that are actually guided prayers from Daily Word magazine. But they were all compiled together into one book, and it was authored by the Reverend Dr. Mary Kupferle, who was ordained in 1959 and was a minister of a Unity church in Florida. And I keep my old yellowed copy of this book on my nightstand to this day for whenever I need it. Many people found the book so comforting that Unity reprinted it after all those years as a paperback. It's available now on the Unity website, on Amazon, etc. For this talk, I decided not to abbreviate Reverend Dr. Mary Kupferle's long name as Mary Kay, realizing that that might cause some people to think about Mary Kay Cosmetics.
That's a good idea.
And I'm guessing that none of us really want to be thinking of shopping for her Rockstar Red lipstick right now. Reverend Mary was really into prayer. In another publication of hers called Guidelines to Prayer, I like her enthusiasm as she explains the human relationship to the divine and to prayer. As a minister who also assisted individual church members with their prayer needs, she said that the more she saw heartbreaking difficulties in people's lives, she said, the more certain I become that all of us are at times forgetful in recognizing the beauty, glory, and power of the law of our own being. It is here. It is with us. It can sweep us up out of every negative influence and heal, bless, and enlighten us if we will but open our mind and heart to it. Jesus has told us so many times, she said, "You are God's beloved. You have inherited the kingdom. You can do what I have done. For we are all children of the same God, and God's law of spirit is ours to use." And Reverend Mary continues, if you are confronted with a situation that you feel is beyond your ability to solve or beyond your capacity to understand, it is imperative that you remember this specific truth about yourself. I am a spiritual steward of God's law and its use, richly endowed with divine capability of overcoming every challenge in life. I looked up the word steward. Steward means manager. So if you wish, you can think of being a manager at a job. You are in charge. You're the one. A manager of God's law and its use. That's pretty important. Other authors agree about how prayer helps us to stop, claim, and see. Eric Butterworth said, prayer is not only asking, but more deeply knowing. Knowing God as our unfailing supply and support. One of the first things that prayer does for us is it changes our inner state. Motivational speaker Tony Robbins, while not a unity person that I know of, talks about shifting to an empowered state. You change your state, he says, by what you focus on, such as the language you use, and you change the story that you tell yourself about what is happening. Ernest Holmes, the founder of Centers for Spiritual Living, had strong words about our need to change our focus when we're suffering. I shall not lie to myself anymore. I shall never again tell myself that I am poor, sick, weak, or unhappy. I shall speak the truth to my soul, telling it that it is wonderful and marvelous. Charles Fillmore also expressed strong words about our prayer to change our state and reality. What can a person do with the thoughts of his mind? A person can do everything with them. They are under our absolute control. We can direct them. We can coerce them. We can hush them or crush them. We can dissolve them and put them in their place. This is where humankind has mastery. When we learn this and exercise that dominion, we open the way to God through mind and thought. And I ask myself, how often do I think in terms like that? Mastery, dominion, you know? Fillmore also said, prayer does not change God, the unchangeable, but it changes people and makes them receptive to the good which is being given without limit. Reverend Mary's prayer guide also said a cool thing about prayer as communication. We are created to communicate with God. God knows our voice because our being is one with the being of God. God is the listening heart of our own indwelling soul. And one thing I love about Reverend Mary's writing is that you experience a journey away from things like stress and anxiety at times when you need that journey. Did people in the Bible ever feel anxiety?
Seems so,
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, just a little.
from what we've heard.
Yeah. Yes, even Jesus turned to God with his own troubles and encouraged others to do the same. Jesus did not seem to expect his followers to be untroubled, with perfectly aligned emotions in us at all times, but that they open to the good. Back in his day, he would have recognized that there were things going on that could upset a person. His homeland was under occupation. Leprosy was going around. What a horrifying thing. And they had no way to treat it. With no modern medicine, the average lifespan was only about 35 years. You had to do all your living, in a very short amount of time. So the people Jesus encountered were not without worries. Even one of the disciples, Thomas, as we know, sometimes experienced doubts. And Jesus himself got upset, at least once that we know of, when he turned over the table of the money changers in the temple. So we don't need to judge ourselves as unspiritual if we ever have a ruffled feather out of place about something. And with regard to the worries some people may need extra prayer help with, I'm going to dare to say something about the Bible. Some of the Bible's sayings about prayer are not immediately uplifting for me. St. Paul, in his letter to the Philippians, wrote, "Do not be anxious about anything." With all due respect to St. Paul, you know, if I'm already feeling anxious about something, that saying doesn't immediately get me out of it, and I need a longer, deeper process to get me there. His words are an ideal that we can aspire to, but not a prayer journey or a process which I may require. I don't have a diagnosed anxiety disorder because mine is usually not severe. But what about people who do? In the United States, I looked up some statistics. 19% of adults have an anxiety disorder in any given year. Anxiety is the most common mental health condition in this country, and many more people experience general anxiety that doesn't meet the criteria for a disorder. In 2024, 33% of students said anxiety negatively impacted their performance in class. And if I substitute the word worry instead of anxiety in my internet search, it says 70% of US adults they report that they have worry or stress on a regular basis. But the point is that even if we don't find ourselves in those statistics, there are times when we might welcome an immersive guided prayer, like those written by Reverend Mary Kupferle. Different people also can experience the same event in different ways. And some people might have an anxiety response to an event that other people might not have, depending on where they're at. And with this in mind, I started thinking about the story of Martha and Mary in the Bible. These two sisters hosted Jesus in their home. And while Jesus was teaching, Martha was busy with food preparations. She was being a good hostess, while Mary sat and listened to Jesus. Martha then got frustrated with Mary and remarked aloud to Jesus that Mary should be helping her instead of just sitting there, essentially doing nothing. When I imagine this scene playing out, I realize there are things we don't know about the two sisters. What their relationship to each other was, such as if Martha regularly nitpicked at Mary, and how Mary took that. How did Mary feel about Martha calling her out in front of their guests that day? How would someone feel if their sister was criticizing them in front of other people, especially somebody they admired like Jesus? And on one hand, Mary might not have been bothered by it at all. She might have been in the perfect meditative state, sitting there in front of Jesus, But on the other hand, if Mary minded the nitpicking or was an anxious person, she might have needed even longer to relax and sit there and listen to Jesus and get into the Christ presence, just as sometimes we might welcome a longer rest or a longer prayer break. And Jesus ultimately took Mary's side about it. Okay, not to pick on St. Paul again.
It's okay.
It's okay, Lydia.
Why not?
We're not partial.
Nobody's perfect.
He did write a lot of helpful things, yet here is another bit of advice he gave that is about prayer that is not a favorite of mine. And sometimes I see it on signs outside of churches. It says, it's a famous quote from Paul's letter to the Thessalonians, "Pray without ceasing." And it makes me think, oh, really? Can you really do that? After all, there are other things I need to do in a day. I think it might be one of those parts of the Bible that it's up to us to interpret. To be fair, Paul was in a jail cell when he wrote "Pray without ceasing." So he probably did have hours to pray. But if Paul were alive today, well, he could probably not have imagined today's world. And if he were alive today driving a car while praying continuously and deeply, would he remember who got to a four-way stop first?
Good one.
That said, I do like to say a quick affirmation for safety when I start a drive. I just don't pray the whole time. Even monks and nuns who pray a lot don't pray non-stop. They pray about 5 designated times per day. And even that might be too much for the average person. We don't have to do that. Can you imagine all of us Unity girls all dressed up like nuns in those nun dresses and things and cloistered away praying all day? Can you imagine us dressed like that? Probably not, but the mental picture of it made me laugh. Not all Bible quotes agree with Paul's quote, though. Psalm 55, verse 17, suggests that we only pray in the morning, at noon, and in the evening. So even the Bible doesn't agree with itself. The interpretation is up to us. Funnily enough, while I was looking this up, the Google AI, you know how it pops up at the top of your search screen and offers a little, commentary on things. It tried to interpret the psalm. It said, the psalm about praying morning, noon, and night means that you should pray all day. And I thought, oh really, Google AI? Some people meditate for 30 minutes a day, and that's what works for them. Some of us might just read the daily word, and many times that can be enough. Sometimes you can think or feel one word, and you have prayed and will receive. Okay, and now I have an actual example of one of Reverend Dr. Mary's guided prayers that has helped me many times. So you'll get to experience a little bit of this for yourself. As a songwriter, I find it interesting that she often uses a song-like order to her prayers, with a refrain or chorus line and supporting verse-like ideas, in a loose kind of way. This is an excerpt from one of my favorites by her, called God is in Control. When I feel worried and I need a longer, loving prayer to get me out of a funk, or an anxiety situation, I've often turned to this one, and it has lifted me out of anxiety and into faith and harmonious resolution in many circumstances. And that's over a period of, a few decades that I've had this book. She begins by drawing you in your hour of need. And to me, her words sound like the loving voice of the divine feminine or of an angel. Dear friend, do you need new direction? Do you long for God's wisdom, order, and healing power to work through your mind and body, for His love and peace to fill your heart? Your life can change if you will quietly know, in this very moment, God is in control. You will never, under any circumstances, doubt your ability, feel weak and defeated if you will firmly and strongly decree, God is in control. Then let go and let Him be. Stop thinking of yourself as weak, sick, or afraid. Claim God as your Father. See God in control of every cell and atom of your being. Let go and let God be in control. And just an aside, that was her introduction, and you hear her refrain line, God is in control. And as I go deeper in, I do let go. She kind of talks you into it. It continues, this moment, no matter to what extent your human emotions of discouragement, loneliness, or feelings of emptiness want to take charge, stop their activity within your mind and heart quickly with these words, God is in control. Claim this truth strongly and insistently. Demand of your mind that your mind know it. Demand of your feelings that your feelings know it. Decree and affirm silently and aloud, lovingly and persistently, God is in control. And this next sentence is like a hypnotic suggestion now that I'm receptive, and it works on me. As you consciously choose to know that God is in control and let God be in charge, you will rise out of old patterns of limited thinking more quickly than you ever believed possible. And that's an example from her book called God Will See You Through. which was reprinted due to popular demand. And like I said, she's like hearing the voice of an angel, really, just the way you would want to be spoken to. So, in conclusion, no matter how we pray, we are blessed profoundly. People who pray are illumined people. People who pray are inspired people. People who pray become strong, courageous people. And stop, claim, see, prayer is not only your power, it is your superpower. You are a manager of God's law. In this area, you have mastery and dominion. You are created to communicate with God. You are made for this. Thank you.
That was great, India.
Thank you so
That
much,
was so
Diana. I'm glad you
good.
enjoyed that.